guys, what's up? It's Joe Rady from Rady's Rides. We're back here at Dream Giveaway Garage, and I have one dream muscle car for you, and it's right here next to me. What is it? It's a one-year-only 1970 Plymouth Cuda, but it's an AAR Cuda. But before we get into this Trans Am race-ready muscle car, let's talk about what's going on here. So you heard correctly. This car, the AAR Cuda, is a one-year-only vehicle. It was specifically for homologation purposes so that Dan Gurney and the All-American racers, that race team of his, could run the cars in the Trans Am series. And really, it was the late 60s and early 1970s that was the height of the Trans Am series. It really is the golden era where you had production-based Camaros, Firebird Trans Ams, even AMC Javelins, plus these Cudas on the track, racing day in and day out. And there were pretty big names too that were behind the wheel of these vehicles, like Mark Donohue, Dan Gurney, and even AJ Foyt. Now, what's fascinating is that if you look at a Camaro, the Trans Am homologation model was the mighty Z28. If you look at a Mustang, the big name was the Boss 302. But if you go Plymouth, this is the way to go with the Cuda AAR. Now, is this better than a Camaro Z28 from back then? I'm not too sure. We're gonna find out. So let's go ahead, let's dive into ours. It's called Limelight. It's the same color from the corporate sister brand of Plymouth, which is Dodge. They had Sublime. This is called Limelight. Let's go ahead, let's dive in to this AAR Cuda and find out, is it better than the Z28 Camaro? Right off the bat, I love the color. It just screams, I am a muscle car. Hear me roar. Back in 1970, Dodge, Plymouth, and Chrysler decided to come out with what are known as impact colors. They wanted to get a lot of attention towards their certain brands. With this color, this is one of those impact colors. Another famous one is Plum Crazy. Also, there was a color called Pink Panther. I love the names, absolutely fantastic what they did back at Mopar during this heyday. Now, when it comes to the AAR Cuda, you'll notice the signature broken up side stripes down the vehicle. This is identical to what they ran on the actual Trans Am race car. Now, starting at the corner here, you have your traditional round headlights, nice chrome bumper, and notice how close the bumper is to the actual body. I love the way during this time period how the bumpers didn't protrude too far. Working our way down, you'll notice some more Limelight, and we have these arrow pieces that are specifically added to the AAR Cuda for extra efficiency when on the racetrack. So those pieces specific to this car. And what's crazy is this car is all original with about 38,000 miles on it. As we come across the front, the Plymouth Barracuda had such a unique grille shape to it. You'll notice that divider in the center. We have functional on both sides, a little bit of silver trim, everything else flat black. And then working your way down, you have the addition of the driving lights. And then you'll notice how we have this large opening to help scoop air into that massive radiator area. But this, like I said, this is a real deal version 1.0 muscle car that was meant not just to go fast in a straight line, but for the twisty bits, because all the Trans Am races were on road courses. Now, as we rise up, you'll notice how we have our flat black front end. And what's different is that back then, they actually painted the whole top of the fenders flat black and the top of the nose plus the hood. This is a fiberglass hood, very light material for back then. It has the required hood pins to keep it buttoned up. And then you'll notice our massive hood scoop. You could actually see the air cleaner peeking from behind, and it has heat extractors on the back for our cal inducted hood. So you're getting a nice amount of airflow both in and out of this AAR Cuda. Now, as we come around the bend, I want to point something out before we go down to the wheels and tires. You're going to notice these big gaps on the side of the hood. That isn't the poor fit and finish. Let me tell you why it looks like this. Because this is original, the hood is attached. It's a fiberglass hood attached to metal hood struts. And they have those hinges and struts have very strong springs. Because of that tension, it causes over time the fiberglass to bow. So this is actually normal for what happens after all the years of this hood opening and closing because of those metal hinges and springs. Now, as we drop down, like I said, I love that sort of like checkered style striping going down the side of the vehicle. When we're looking at wheel and tire, you're looking at a 15-inch wheel. We have our rally style wheel. This is a steel wheel with our aluminum trim ring, and we're running BF Goodrich TA tires, no bias ply. This is a better tire to run on the road, and I love the raised white letters, looks fantastic. 235 on the width, 60 series sidewall, and the way the car sits just looks spectacular. Now, of course, besides the engine, they also did certain suspension work and brake work to make this more race ready for the track. Coming down the side, following those stripes, you have your very small side mirrors. I love how tiny those are with the Limelight on it. Nice chrome trim into our quarter window. And what's great about the quarter window is you could actually roll these down, which is cool too for people sitting in the back seat. You have these flush door handles. And I just love the shape of the side of the vehicle. And it's interesting because back then, whether you bought a Barracuda, whether you bought a Dodge Challenger, each car had its own style, even though it came from basically the same corporate OEM manufacturer, because it was Chrysler, Plymouth, Dodge. And this is obviously the Plymouth, the Barracuda, better known as the Cuda. Now, this particular Cuda has actually been raised out back about 2 inches. The reason why is we have the added side exit exhaust, just like on Dan Gurney's All-American Racers. On the race car, you have those trumpet style exhaust, nice slash cut, oval opening, and then you'll see how it gives it that nice pitch, that muscle car stance. Out back, same setup with the tires. You got your raised white letters, 255, and then that 60 series sidewall. We have posi traction to get the power to the ground, that sure grip posi traction, and then noticing the stripes into the Cuda name, and like I said, Dan Gurney's race team, All-American Racers. As we come around the back, you're gonna have a duck tail spoiler, flat black, nice kick up specific to the AAR Cuda. And look at how they did the tail lights. Nice horizontal bars, the flat black in the center with the Cuda name. And then dropping it down to ground level. Love that angle out the back, especially because it's so clean without having rear exit exhaust. And just so you know, when I say Dan Gurney, we're talking about the same Dan Gurney that won the 1967 24 Hours of Le Mans with the Ford factory team in the GT40, the Ford GT40, with his co-driver AJ Foyt. The only time American car, American driver, and American team won the coveted 24 Hours of Le Mans. But why don't we go ahead, let's pop the hood pins and take a look at the heart of this AAR Cuda. All right, guys, we got that fiberglass hood open. Underneath the hood, look at it in all of its glory. It's that 340 6-barrel setup. What does that mean? That means underneath this air cleaner cover, we have 3 2-barrel carburetors, also known as the 6-pack, also known as 3 deuces, because it's 3 2-barrel carburetors. But what kind of horsepower do we have? You're looking at, out of that 340 cubic inch V8, 290 horsepower, 350 pound-feet of torque. It's mated to a Torque Flight 3-speed automatic transmission, or you can also get a 4-speed, which obviously would be the transmission of choice if I was buying one of these. It will do 0 to 60, believe it or not, in 5.7 seconds, quarter mile in 14 seconds flat, and the car weighs 3,600 pounds. It has that sure grip, posi traction rear end. It also has an Edelbrock aluminum intake from the factory. And of course, that dual outlet exhaust. Now, if you're wondering what is the Edelbrock aluminum intake, let me see if I could show you here. So that would be this piece here that gets bolted to the top of the block, and that's where your 3 carburetors are gonna sit that are underneath there. But like I said, crazy to see this being all original. And yes, Mopars came bright orange on the blocks from the factory. But why don't we go ahead, let's fire up this V8 and hear that muscle car sound. All right, guys, we're inside this 1970 Plymouth AAR Cuda. I know you're saying to yourself, well, Joe, I want to win this so bad. When I was a kid, I had a little model and I played with it. And now I really want to have my own. Well, the great news is that Dream Giveaway Garage is giving this one away, and it's actually paired with a Roadrunner. So you can get the Roadrunner and the Cuda. But let's see what the AAR Cuda brought back in 1970. If you're ready, I'm ready. To the door panels. Clean, simple style. No door pocket, no cup holder, none of that crap. You'll notice that device at the bottom, that is the crank to roll up and down the windows. And you got the Cuda name. Now, if you're confused, when we go from the door panel to the dash, you'll notice the name Barracuda. What happened was, first there was the Barracuda. Because of the young teenagers shortening it up and calling it Cuda, Plymouth decided that the hopped up version would be the Cuda. And that's why, yes, technically it's the Barracuda, but they call it the Cuda. Love the dash, that simplicity. Open this up, you got your ashtray, your cigarette lighter. Don't smoke, kids. It's not good for you. You got your switch gear to open up your vents. This does not have air conditioning. And then you'll notice the center console. There's our Torque Flight 3-speed automatic. They call that the slapstick. Would have been nicer to have the pistol grip with the 4-speed manual. Love the way this old school style is. Open this up. You got enough room in here for, believe it or not, 4 vintage Twinkies. And you could have a Twinkie from 1970 and they'll still taste just fine. Seats, the vinyl, good style, keeping it simple. And then obviously manual controls for everything. We flip the seat forward and you do have usable rear seats, and even, of course, an ashtray for your rear seat passengers. If I could open this up. There we go, Steven. I got it open. Of course, you got to have an ashtray for everybody. But why don't you go ahead, get your butt over here. I want to show you behind the business end of this AAR Cuda. All right, guys, business time behind the wheel. Obviously, you have a little bit of nice aluminum style on the sill. That's how all the cars used to be. Manual seat controls, easy to figure out for the passenger and the driver. I'm 6 feet tall, plenty of room. And just so you know, back then in 1970, this class of car was called midsize. This is a midsize car, just saying. And then the rest comes down to the steering wheel. Nice teak wood all the way around, 3-spoke design. We have all of our switch gear for our headlamps, our wipers. Down here you got your heater controls because we don't have air conditioning. And then look at that gauge setup. tachometer right in the center, red line, 6,500 RPM. You have all your other gauges for your coolant, your oil temp, and we have our clock fully functional, and of course our AM radio with the push button presets. Really, really cool to see that old school. But why don't we go ahead, I want to show you the trunk just because of how good it looks in this original AAR Cuda, and then we're going to fire her up and go for a spin. All right, guys, we had to show the trunk on this just because of how pristine everything is inside. No rust or corrosion whatsoever. It has the original Space Saver spare, and you have your jack bolted in on the driver's side over there. But this is what you found trunk space-wise in your 1970 AAR Cuda. But that sounds good. It's that time. If you're ready, I'm ready. Let's fire up this muscle car and go for a spin. All right, guys, we are behind the wheel of this 1970 Plymouth AAR Cuda with that 340 six-pack and the Torque Flight 3-speed automatic, also named the Slapstick, so that you could go from first to second to third manually. Now, this car is really a time warp because everything in it is original. It's a little under 38,000 miles, and it drives really, really well. Steering is nice and straight. It's got plenty of power, that's for sure. Speaking of power, let me slow it down a little bit. We're gonna get the Slapstick, and we're gonna put it into first gear here. There she is, and if you're ready, I'm ready. We're gonna go on throttle. On throttle, yeah! Nice, second. Really, really runs strong. Obviously, having some of those AAR Cuda specialties underneath the hood and underneath the sheet metal, like the suspension, like the brakes, help with the overall handling and performance of this vehicle. Still a far cry from what a Hellcat or even a Scat Pack can do, but for back then, this was one of the bad boys. Love seeing our big bulge hood, that muscle car bulge hood with the ram air, the hood pins, and there's just great visibility. I mean, this thing is really, really awesome to drive, and I could just imagine what it must have been like to be at tracks like Laguna Seca, Watkins Glen, even Sebring in these. But let's do it again. On throttle, here we go! Nice. Just the sound of that V8, I could listen to it for days and days. Power brakes, thank God we got them. They run good. Obviously, there's a bit of body roll, but it is a car that's from 1970. She runs so freaking good, though. She really does. I mean, look at this. And to think that Dan Gurney would manhandle these things around a road course, but just the sights, the smell, the sensations, this thing brings it tenfold. And you're gonna see a lot less of these than you are Z28 Camaros. That's guaranteed. They only made a little bit more than 1,000 of them, and very rare to see it in the Limelight color. Normally you see like a, Go Mango style color or a Touareg color. This really stands out nicely. But just what a special experience being in such a special muscle car. A time forgotten, but one that I definitely never want to forget. And it's just crazy how they just don't build them like they used to, because this thing runs so well. The 355 gears out back, and that sure grip rear end, posi traction rear end, helping to get the power to the ground. and the sound of that naturally aspirated V8. But we gotta get back to Dream Giveaway Garage because we got more of their cars I want to drive and feature on the channel. So I'll see you in a muscle car minute. Guys, always a great day at Dream Giveaway Garage when we could get the flux capacitor fired up and go back in time and take one of these iconic cars out. Definitely want to thank everybody at Dream Giveaway Garage, Lori, Chris, Ryan, and the rest of the team getting us access to this vehicle. Remember, if you spend $25 or more, you get 3 times the amount of giveaways, and I don't get paid to say that. But let's talk about this. Such an iconic car, the AAR Cuda, ready for Trans Am racing. Would you rather have this? Is this the better muscle car over a Z28 Camaro? Let me know how you feel about it down in the comment section. But if you're new to the channel and you're on your way out, hit that subscribe button. I promise you it's worthwhile. Come back for more. If you are a subscriber, thank you for being part of the Raised Rides family. Gotta give it up to Stephen Flood. He loves old cars. He loves new cars. He just loves cars. And that's why we love him. So thank you, Stephen, for all that you do. And just like always, guys, I'll see you on the next ride.